Good morning. Last class, we talked about the idea that The Marrow Thieves was a novel about story, and we broke story up into lowercase story, the individual coming to stories, and uppercase story, the history of the native people. I, Obviously, when you have this novel called The Marrow Thieves, and the premise is that dreams are wrapped up in the marrow of one's bones, and marrow is central to the bone, is central to the human, to to get to the meat of the matter, to get to the marrow, to get to the core. um, so obviously dreams are central to the core of this novel, and anytime I deal with a novel about dreams or a short story about dreams, I come back to a couple of things. Number one, there's the line from Hamlet, what dreams may come. And I think that this novel has this question, for the non-indigenous people: what dreams may come? When are we going to see these dreams? But it's true for Frenchie. It's true for the people he's with. They too have the question, what dreams may come? And they also have the question, I think, what dreams may come true? The other is a poem called Harlem by Langston Hughes, and it has this question: what happens to a dream deferred? And for Frenchie and Midge and Minerva, obviously their dreams have been deferred for a long time. The idea of finding safety, the idea of finding acceptance as a human being, those simple dreams have been deferred and pushed back. And so you start having the question of, does it dry up? Does it just go away? Does it get infected and turn into something else? And does it explode? Certainly Rose seems to be one who just wants to go fight the whole time. And so, you know, does what happens to these dreams that are deferred? And again, what happens to the dreams that don't happen at all? And we kind of deal with that with some of the quotations in the novel. I think at the beginning of the novel, we have this idea of dreams, and they're sort of hopeful. Okay. He is dreaming of north. He believes that if he gets north, it is safety. It is the same situation I think Todd found himself in The Knife of Never Letting Go. It is the same sort of situation Ishmael Bay found himself in Sierra Leone as he's trying to walk and find safety. There's this sense of hope, and the dreams take him to that. Also, obviously, throughout the novel, dreams are a source of healing. And we'll keep coming back to that in various quotations. But this was our medicine. And the idea of the medicine being able to heal both the body and the mind, and since I said both, I'll stop there. It also healed the soul. I also wonder if Demoline was trying to put in a quick illusion here. If you take a look at the bones dancing, I am reminded of a scene from the Bible in the book of Ezekiel, where Ezekiel comes across this valley of dry bones, and God breathes life into them, and the bones begin to get up and move. And I really do wonder whether she is asking us to think about dreams breathing the breath of life into all of us, and into Frenchie in particular, and allowing our dry bones to get up and move. Okay. Also, I think it's important to take a look at the fact that if the marrow is the place where the dreams are, Frenchie and Midge and Minerva, the indigenous folk, have bones that can get up and move and live. The non indigenous folk in the novel do not. I think also, as Midge is telling the story, uppercase story, we can take a look at the idea of that dreams are necessary both for the individual and they're necessary communally. Okay. Um, People got sad at an individual level. They tried to sleep away the sadness, and they couldn't dream. Once that happened, they took pills, they stopped wanting to sleep, and once they couldn't dream anymore, once they couldn't sleep anymore, there's a certain amount of rage that goes on. There's a certain amount of anger that goes on. And I think that you can see that individual dreams can be helpful, necessary medicine from the previous slide. But here I think that lack of individual dreams, and I'm not trying to be punny here at all, turn into sort of a communal nightmare. And I think that that too is an important element of this novel. On pages 42 and 52, we can see that dreams are not all beneficial, that dreams do not always provide the solace and the comfort that one would hope. If you take a look at the quotation on the left, Frenchie is talking about seeing his brother, seeing his parents, and having nightmares. His father falls into fire, and bad things are happening to everybody around him every time he is dreaming. Yet a few pages later, the moose visits him in his dreams. There's a certain peacefulness to that visit. There's a certain, ephemeral nature to it because that's what dreams are. But it is not the nightmare. It is something that is comforting. It is something that is that Frenchie can hang on to from an experience he had in the forest. Also, I think it's important to take a look at the fact that just like real life in this novel, dreams affect all of the senses. Okay, I think I've talked about that a little bit before, but if I take a look here, you notice that we can see and we can smell on the left. Okay, and we've got the sense of touch on the right. The senses are all being affected at some level or another. Okay, sight, smell, touch, um, all of this, the senses are being affected. And I think it's important that for this novel in particular, dreams are, yes, ephemeral. Dreams are, yes, something that are just out there and you can't hang on to them completely. But dreams are also concrete. They do affect the senses. And for Frenchie and his group, the senses are important. I don't know if I ever do quite enough with the language use. There'll be a series of slides about it. But his language use and the sensory things that Demoline does are just amazing, or that she does. Going back to something we've talked about before, sorry about that. I think we can take a quick look at the idea that when structure has been upended, when structure has been destroyed, we need something to provide stability. And I think that there's a certain irony that in this novel, the ephemeral thing, the least stable thing, provides that. Okay? Their lives have been upended. They got sicker. They stopped dreaming. Okay? Those three things can kind of all go together. But the fact of the matter is, the suburban structure of their lives, all of the norms, all of the habits, all of the places people can go shopping, all of the idea that food can be delivered from Jimmy John's or, Papa John's or whatever, gets taken away. And they need dreams, the ephemeral thing, to replace those concrete sorts of things. Obviously, there's necessary for physical health. It's necessary for mental health. I should have added that to the side. But the last sentence, a man without dreams is just a meaty machine with a broken gauge. Demoline, I think, is pushing very hard that it is necessary for moral health, that there might have been some moral sickness in all of the individuals before all of this stuff happened, but the lack of dreams is what pushed them over the edge and caused them to recreate the schools, caused them to see the native indigenous people as nothing but a commodity. I think the dreams in this novel also are important to remember because they are necessary for the future. They are necessary for the traditions that drive Midge, that drive Minerva, that drive Frenchie, and the kids who want to be old timey, who want to have a connection to the traditions. The dreams are necessary to drive them. And the dreams that are in their marrow have to somehow be left for everyone else. They have to share that dream with with someone else. And I think it's important here to understand that this is kind of a historical reference as well for Demoline. The schools, and I'll talk about this a little bit in that presentation. The schools tried to beat the native out of the boy, okay, to try to take away the tradition, take away the language, take away the dreams. And here they're metaphorically or doing it by sucking all the marrow out of them. I think it's important to understand that hanging on to something, leaving something behind for the next generation is something necessary when people have had their past ripped from them. What little is left of their past is now part of their present, and they need to leave that for everyone else. Okay? I'm going to just use a weird example. My mother, who is, in her mid 80s, she and her neighbor lady in the apartment that they live in spend a lot of Sunday afternoons just picking up photo albums and reminiscing, thinking about the past. But it's also important for her to remind me who, her great uncle was and everything else, so that I can remind people in the future about where we came from, where our family came from. And we try to do that through food, through stories, through whatever. But I think here, dreams are a big part of that. The novel leaves me with some questions as well. Frenchie here, as they're leaving the lodge, the resort area, um, talks about the fact that the dreams are shrouded in fog and cold, and that the dreams inside the lodge, it seems, are different than the dreams out in the forest. And I guess I haven't really thought about this very much, but there seems to be a question here. Does location affect dreams? Were the dreams different as they got closer to the north? Were the dreams different? Um, were there fewer nightmares, for example? And is this true for us as well? Do you guys have different dreams um, when you're on campus than you do when you're home? Um, those sorts of things. And it's just an open question. I don't have a lot to say about it. Um, it might be the daily writing for today. I haven't decided that yet, but I think it's something to look at. Does location affect dreams? And then finally, it's the idea of a gift. Whether we're talking about the physical dreams, whether we're talking about the dreams for a better future, whether we look at them for hope, and again, we can go back to the knife of never letting go, the idea that hope is a two-edged sword. We've seen that the dreams here are double-sided, a two-edged sword. And so I think as we go through this thing, it's important to just take a look at, in this novel, they're a gift. People who don't have them are worse off than people who do, and people who have them retain their humanity. People who don't have them treat other humans as commodities. Finally, and I don't know if Demoline did enough with this. She quotes Camus, she quotes a lot of people, but she, I don't think, necessarily puts it in the full native tradition. Um, and here's this story from the Black Elk Speaks about a Lakota holy man called Drinkswater, who dreamed about what was to be. And he dreamed of four-leggeds going back to the earth in a strange race that had woven a spider's web around the Lakotas. And you're going to live in these square gray houses. And they talk about how this has now all come true. And the idea of dreams being wiser than waking. In a lot of ways, I think that this is a 6-word story for this novel. Okay? Sometimes dreams are wiser than waking. It was Minerva's dreams, and it was the fact that Minerva dreamed everything in the native language that she was able to defeat the recruiters and bring down that building. Um, and it was the wisdom she had, even though she was seen as foolish. It's one of the things in literature that happens quite frequently, that you see the foolish person have a great amount of wisdom. That's true in King Lear, for example. The fool has more wisdom than Lear does. But when you get to this point, the Lakota holy man talking about the idea that dreams are wiser than waking, I think you see that here in the character of Minerva. And then, just as a quick aside, please remember that Minerva is the Roman goddess of wisdom. Um, Minerva's wisdom here, I think, comes through in a big way. I think I'm going to wrap it up here. I hope you guys all have a good day. Remember, we got uh, quiz on Friday, and hope to see those of you who are watching it in class on Wednesday.